Canada proudly presents itself as a northern nation, yet the vast majority of its citizens experience this northernness primarily through symbols and imagination rather than lived reality. The anthem itself proclaims the true North strong and free, but most Canadians experience winter as a seasonal inconvenience rather than the defining condition it is in the territories. This contradiction becomes evident in how Canadians have mythologized their relationship with the North. The group of 7 painters, who rose to prominence in the 1920s, deliberately created a national aesthetic centered around the rugged landscapes of the Canadian Shield and Northern Wilderness. Their vivid depictions of windswept pines, crystalline lakes, and imposing rock formations became iconic representations of Canadianness, despite depicting landscapes most Canadians rarely visit. The mysterious death of Tom Thomson in Algonquin Park further romanticized the northern wilderness in Canadian imagination. Canadian currency and commercial imagery reinforce this northern mythology. From the hockey scenes on the $5 bill to the Arctic imagery on the $20 note, official symbols consistently invoke a northern identity that contrasts with most citizens' daily urban experiences. I sing about our great northern wilderness in my music, reflects Toronto-based musician Sarah McLean, yet I've spent maybe 2 weeks of my life north of Sudbury. My Canada is concrete, diversity, and public transit, but I still feel connected to those forests I rarely see. This disconnect is stark in the numbers. A 2019 Environics Institute poll found that 71% of Canadians strongly associated their national identity with wilderness and nature, while 83% lived in urban areas. When selecting images representing Canada, respondents overwhelmingly chose northern landscapes over urban skylines, despite spending their lives in cities and suburbs. The imagined North serves a crucial psychological function for Canadians living in the South. It provides a distinctive national identity separate from the United States, a way to say we are not American, without directly referencing their neighbor. The North becomes a mythological frontier that distinguishes Canadian identity, even as most citizens cluster along the border of the very country they define themselves against. Canadian author Margaret Atwood observed that the central symbol of America is the frontier, always moving outward, while Canada's symbol is survival in a harsh landscape. This orientation toward survival rather than conquest has profoundly influenced Canadian social policies, which emphasize collective well-being over individual achievement. Living close to the world's most powerful cultural and economic force has required Canada to develop strong policy differences to maintain its distinct identity. The nation's universal healthcare system stands in stark contrast to the American private insurance model. Canada's stricter gun regulations, which resulted in firearm homicide rates 1/7 that of the United States, represent another clear policy divergence reflecting different social priorities. Multiculturalism emerged as a distinctive Canadian approach to nation building. While the United States embraced the melting pot metaphor, Canada officially adopted multiculturalism as policy in 1971, becoming the first country in the world to do so. This recognized that a country spanning such vast territory with a relatively small population needed to accommodate diversity rather than enforce conformity. The border proximity has created what some scholars call a garrison mentality in Canadian culture, a sense of needing to defend against American cultural dominance. This mentality manifests in content regulations requiring Canadian television and radio to include specific percentages of Canadian content, government funding for arts and literature, and educational curricula that emphasize Canadian achievements. Yet this border-hugging population distribution has also made Canada one of the world's most urban and diverse societies. Greater Toronto now ranks as one of the most multicultural metropolitan areas globally, with over 51% of residents born outside Canada. Vancouver similarly counts nearly 45% of its population as foreign-born. This level of diversity exceeds comparable American cities and has occurred precisely because Canada's urban, southern concentration created dense, economically vibrant communities with strong global connections. The urban character of Canadian life stands in contrast to the wilderness imagery dominating national symbols. While Canadians romanticize cabin life and northern lights, Their daily reality involves navigating multicultural urban neighborhoods, working in office towers, and participating in a thoroughly modern economy. This tension extends into political discourse. Politicians regularly invoke the North when discussing Canadian sovereignty, yet the federal government maintains a minimal presence there compared to its intensive focus on urban centers. The three Northern Territories hold just 3 seats in Parliament, despite comprising approximately 40% of Canada's landmass, while Ontario and Quebec together hold 199 of 338 seats. For Indigenous peoples, particularly those in northern communities, this romantic view of the North as pristine wilderness has often marginalized their presence and sovereignty. The disparity between how urban Canadians imagine northern landscapes and the lived reality of communities facing housing shortages and food insecurity represents another dimension of this national contradiction. As climate change transforms Arctic regions, many Canadians may encounter the true North primarily as an environmental challenge rather than a mythic landscape. Resource companies view warming temperatures as an opportunity, while territorial governments struggle with thawing permafrost. How will this uniquely Canadian paradox evolve as the physical North changes and urban centers grow increasingly diverse? Can a nation continue to define itself through landscapes most citizens never experience? Or will new symbols of identity emerge that better reflect Canada's urban, multicultural reality? As we've explored the forces that have shaped Canada's unique population pattern, we can appreciate how powerfully geography, history, economics, and infrastructure have worked in concert to create this reality. Human settlement ultimately bows to practical constraints, regardless of our ambitions or policies. We build our communities where survival is easiest and opportunities greatest. This principle extends beyond Canada's borders. As climate change reshapes habitability patterns worldwide, populations will respond accordingly. Maps reveal stories beyond cartographers' intentions. Canada's map shows us that invisible forces, geological, historical, economic, shape nations more profoundly than government directives.